Hi everyone, Patricia Warby, Alchemy Therapies, My Emotional Audit, and now Emotional Masterclass. And today I want to talk about an interview that I watched last week with John Demartini and Brian Rose of London Real. Now, I'm a great fan of London Real. I'm actually an investor as well, because it's a fantastic forum for people who perhaps wouldn't be heard elsewhere. I've done a review already on Dr. Gabor Mate, and now it's John Demartini's turn to be interviewed. And I've probably watched 3/4 of it. It's a very long interview. The original is over 2 hours and 12 minutes, I think. The YouTube shortened version is 45, and I'll put the links to that in the description here. The link to the longer version is in the description of the YouTube video, so you can follow that if you feel inspired to watch the whole interview. But now I'm familiar with John Demartini's work. He's a self-described teacher, writer, researcher. That's the three things he kind of focuses on. He travels the world gathering information and disseminating information on how to master your life and kind of understand the way your mind and your body work. And in the past, I must admit, having watched him, I'm somewhat sometimes a bit feeling like he is egotistical in some way. That was definitely my view before I watched this. Because he's so well learned, he's a polymath, he just reads and takes in information at a level which I can only kind of look back and think, wow, if I could do that, that would be amazing. And I'm considered something of a polymath myself. But his brain is just so absorbent. He seems to take in information and be able to arrange it in ways that make it understandable to people. And in this interview, I found him very approachable, actually, and I've sort of revised my opinion of him completely. And I want to sort of give my view on what came up, because as you know, I do a lot of presentations on mind and the body and connection and the importance of healing. And I loved it that he started really with gratitude as a synchronizer. Think about that. We're all told that feeling gratitude is a good thing. Okay, so writing a gratitude diary is often given as a sort of therapy to people. Because of the natural negativity bias of our brain, we tend to focus much more on what's not working in our lives and what's going wrong than we do on things that are going well and things that we kind of could spend our energy more wisely on, thanking the people in our lives when perhaps they're there to show us or teach us stuff, and we're just not awake enough to notice, and we kind of distract ourselves in other ways and don't pay attention to the right things. So, but I loved the idea that it's a synchronizer of energy that brings to you more of what you want. If you think about people who focus all the time on their problems, and you could say that I do that for a living. I focus on other people's problems. I do, because I focus mainly on childhood trauma. But I need to move them on from that, because if you focus on what's wrong, that's all you're going to ever attract to you in your life. And your life is going to be full of problems, and it's going to be repeating problems of the same sort with different characters. And that's what I see. So we have to move people beyond that into a state of gratitude. And that's an active state, actually. That's not just like feel more kindly towards people. This is actually something you have to actively pursue and sit and think about or write down, what's working in my life right now? What works here? What's good? And who do I need to thank here? Thank the people around you if they've done a good service, or they've given you something that you didn't have before. I mean, I'm always thanking my clients because they teach me so much about the human condition, and sometimes they give me wisdom and awareness of things that I can only know so much, and I can't know it all. So it's wonderful to be able to say thank you. That was really great. And I do try and do that after sessions with people, really appreciate that. And it gives them a sense of being heard as well. So I thought that was really good. As an attractor, we might look at it in the light of the law of attraction, which you may have heard of. But so being in a space that feels congruent with you, that's the other thing he was talking about. And he was saying most people are out of alignment with who they really are, which I would agree with. And they're in a delusion, basically, of unrealistic expectations. Think about that one. So we're expecting other people to act in ways in which we would act, or in ways that we expect. And so we're in a delusion that's aligning with a value system that we can't possibly know, because we're never in someone else's life, and each of us has different values, and what we value we surround ourselves with. That's another thing that Demartini teaches, actually. And I'm thinking, what do I surround myself with? Well, books, plants, my plans. This is the emotional audit. And that's kind of, my teaching, my researching, my writing, and my love of nature and all the organic earth, and what grows here and what lives here. So he's absolutely right. He's saying that if we're in that delusion, though, and we're not in alignment with our values, then we tend to undermine ourselves in our relationships. We're stuck in blame. It was their fault. I didn't get this. It's my teachers, my parents. And I'm very clear when I work with people, it's nobody's fault, and we have to learn to take responsibility for our lives as adults. We can't do that as children. We're very dependent. But as adults, we have to move beyond our past as the definition of who we are, and into our current awareness of who we could be if we were living in alignment with who we truly are beneath the mask that we needed to wear in order to survive. So we transcend our limitations when we come into true alignment with our values. And most people have no idea what their values are. They've never looked at them. They don't know that values exist particularly. So say one of your values is education, which clearly that's one of mine. Authenticity, it turns out, is my top value. So it means I don't necessarily conform, because it's not authentic to me to just say, oh yes, because you believe that, I've got to. Particularly if there's the whiff of hypocrisy around it, which I'm detecting a lot these days. So it's kind of learning to find your own authentic voice and what you believe and what's important to you and what lights you up. And that inspires you, quite literally. Think of that word, break that apart. It brings spirit in, it inspires you, and in inspiring you, you help to inspire others, because you're coming from a place that is congruent energetically. And you will know that when you meet people who talk in authentically. I hope I do. But it's, if we look at our politicians, for instance, I think we can see the inauthenticity of most of those people, because they're in the miasm or the kind of delusion of power. I'm powerful. I don't want to name names. I could, but in the British system, our government is populated by people who tend to be very attracted to the idea of being powerful. And actually the idea of serving others, although they give lip service to that, is not actually what they spend their time and attention on. And you see that because they often depart, they get sacked or they resign, has been happening recently. And then they go on and they create a life that's all about who they were when they were in power, because power was their top kind of value, if you like. And so we see the inauthenticity, and maybe we notice that more often than we do authenticity, because frankly, it's more common to see people who are being inauthentic and power driven and out of alignment with the true kind of nature of humanity, which is we shouldn't have power over each other. We should empower each other. That's what we should be doing. But here we are. So what I teach people, and what John was saying, is to honor yourself and your authentic values above all things. And first of all, you need to find out what they are. And so when people work with me, they'll get an exercise called the value exercise, which is a way of finding out your values, because, as I've said, most people have no idea. Then we'll look at maybe how you are honoring those in your daily life, because a lot of people may say, oh, health is my highest value. I used to say that health is my highest value, but I would not spend money on myself to keep my health good. I would not go and seek treatment other than free treatment, which is available in the UK on the NHS, which is a form of disempowerment, actually, because what the NHS prompts is actually a disempowerment. It largely tells you what organs you need to remove and what drugs you need to take, rather than what can you do to help keep yourself healthy, which is a totally different story. So honoring yourself, honoring your values, living authentically actually magnetizes opportunity. I loved that. That's what he said, magnetizes opportunity. So in other words, it gives energy to more things to come your way that actually are part of your growth and part of what you're here to do, which is to empower others, to give value to others. We are given meaning by that. You know, if you think about the most meaningful things in your life, they're not about the money you accumulated. They may give you a very short-term gratification, a hit of dopamine, but then after a while, you know, how many cars can you have? How much money can you have sitting in the bank? If it gives no meaning to you, it is pointless and purposeless. And he was also saying about social media and how, you know, it's just a medium like anything else. It's neither good nor bad. It has good things in that he can now teach across the world to, he quoted 75 million people, or was it 57? Sorry, 57 million people he was able to lecture to the other day from his hotel room. I was knocked out by that. 57 million people across the world. Amazing, amazing. But it also gives us some negative impacts in that it is an opportunity to compare ourselves with far more people if we allow that. You know, if we're just scrolling mindlessly, looking at people posting, you know, very unrealistic accounts of their life. You know, it's all the good stuff and it's all perfection. It's all aimed at being more perfect and bigger and better than everyone else. You know, these ideals of beauty and achievement without context. So you don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know the bad stuff. So values are completely absent from the images we're being projected and we're being you know, we're looking at. So one important point was we're not here to compare ourselves with others, but we're here to compare ourselves with our own actions. How are our own actions matching our values? How are we honoring those on a daily basis? And that really is something that makes this an active state rather than just a passive one of, well, I do this for a living and that's enough. It's like, does that really work for me? Is it still working for me? Because sometimes you can go into something and it appeals to your values when you're young, but as you age, your values are subtly changing as you're growing and learning about life and who you are. And maybe your role no longer sustains you, no longer gives you meaning. That certainly happened to me. And I had to get out eventually from what I had been doing, which was university health research, which, you know, gave me loads of great experiences. And I am really grateful for what I learned doing that, but it became incongruent with who I now am. So values, living in alignment with your values gives you a sense of expansion. It gives you possibilities. I myself at the moment, and obviously I'm podcasting, I've been doing that for a number of years, and you know, some of you listening to this will be aware of that. But I'm also venturing into new fields where I'm approaching more people and I'm creating new material for people to come across me in ways that perhaps they wouldn't be aware of me before, via YouTube in one way, and also the books that I write. So I'm reaching out to new audiences because I want to expand the number of people that I can interact with in a positive way, not just me as a sort of teacher or guru, but to learn also from others. And what's great about that is it isn't just a form of building self-esteem, which it does do, but it also allows you to live harmonically well in your body. So your body physiologically changes to give you more energy when you're in congruence. Now that is something that people with chronic fatigue or fatigue-related conditions like long COVID and fibromyalgia and all the other things that we're seeing more and more is a direct response to you're out of alignment with something in your life and you're disempowered in some way, and your body is just a real-time readout of what's going on in your mind and your consciousness. So And he was talking about the executive function in the brain and how the medial prefrontal cortex is actually talking and inhibiting your kind of fear center, your amygdala response, which is where people tend to react from when they are out of alignment. And they'll get, all sorts of addictions and habits that don't serve them. They'll come home after a day at work and they'll just mindlessly watch TV or scroll on a device, which is what I was doing, because you're trying to numb the feeling of being out of kilter with your life, and that this isn't possible for you. So it's really, what he was saying was a real-time feedback loop from your body, via your mind and body, to tell you that something's wrong and you need to look at stuff. And so that's very much what I do with people. It's not just I help them heal their fatigue. I actually get them to live an authentic life for them. And many people have no idea what's authentic for them. We have to go back to usually early childhood before all the conditioning, the social conditioning, the schooling, which teaches you, as John said, to be a drone. The schooling system is all about conformity and very little about thrival. He used the word thrival. I was so happy. It's a word that I thought I'd coined because it doesn't exist in the dictionary, but he used it. So we need to look at ways in which we can teach others to thrive. And if we can't do that in our school system, which it seems it's very difficult in the mainstream schooling sector, we can at least teach people after that, when they come into adulthood, that they can live lives of meaning and purpose and giving. That it's not about altruism. It's not about giving everything away for free. It's actually about giving value to others, which they'll be happy to pay for and want to give back. And that is what I'm doing in my business. And I am noticing the changes very much, from being too scared to spend money on advertising, for instance, or it started with being too scared to charge people for what I do. And I had to really get over that first hurdle. Then it was the marketing hurdle and delegation, which is teaching me a lot at the moment, giving away what I don't want to do, what it's not in my best interest to be involved in. And now expanding into this advertising space where I'm actually reaching people who've never heard of me, but are hopefully my ideal client. They're people that really want to work at this level. So that's what I gleaned from the beginning part of his talk, and I thought it was really interesting. He was talking about impulsive and compulsive behaviors being linked to kind of these polarities that we're being presented with in daily life. So the media have a lot to answer for in that. The mass media, not social media so much, although that thrives on it too, but mass media tends to show you huge polarities. And just to give you an example, we're either in a terrific drought situation or we're in a deluge. We're either in a total financial insecurity, or we are overwhelmed with messages of how to kind of achieve being a millionaire and how much you can buy, and we have those polarities, and most of us are somewhere in the middle. But these are addictive. These polarities are addictive, and they drive division as well in society, that we either have to be one thing or the other, and there's no middle ground. Because it's basically inserting other people's values into your life. This ideal that you either have to be rich and famous, which a lot of kids grow up with the idea that that's the only way to be kind of free. Whereas actually they can find meaning. We can all find meaning in daily life, in serving and giving and being in harmony with our highest ideals. And so he's saying a lot of people are extrinsically focused, what other people tell them to do, rather than what intrinsically they understand about themselves. When you come into congruence with your own intrinsic self and you're operating from that level, life becomes easier. Can I just say? It's not actually it's not like climbing the mountain, you get to the top and then you're looking down on everyone. You actually find you can just gently row the boat, as it were, down through life, and life gets easier. And that's why I completely agree with what he's saying there. Making your values your highest priority in your life and in your actions will give you success as a feedback. Where it gives you challenges, which is inevitable in life, if you are outside of the polarity of good and bad, or good and evil, you will understand that challenges are part of life, and they're simply feedback from the system. And people who are successful will read that as feedback, not failure. So that was another important lesson that I've learned, and one which he was talking about. And he also said the brain is a highest value seeking organ. Now, I always say the brain is a pattern matching organ, all right, which is how I see the brain. It's looking for patterns. It's looking for what it needs to match to. But if it's also matching to your value, the highest value that you have in your life, if you know it, then you will be acting according to those, and you'll be inhibiting your fear and contraction of your kind of your amygdala, your limbic brain. And you'll be operating efficiently for the first time in your life and not sabotaging yourself. So this authentic living is really, it's profound, but it's easier, it's better, if you can find it. And it takes away all the stress out of the body. And stress is a very important component, because we have two forms of stress. We have eustress and distress. Eustress is good stress. So if I said to you, you've got a holiday booked, you would have a certain amount of stress about getting ready for the holiday and packing and all of that, but you would still have this buzz and this high, because it's a good stress, because you're going to love what you do. If I said to you, you've got to take an exam tomorrow for which you've not had any time to revise, that would be distress. It would be a stress that's quite negatively impacting your body, and that changes your physiology. You come into kind of fight and flight instead of kind of rest and digest or repair mode. So this isn't just about solving your psychological issues, it's actually making your body work well and allowing aging to be kind of slowed down. Aging is a factor of the amount of stress, most of it unconscious, that you're under. So you're assigning priority to the things that have the highest value in your life. You're reducing your distress, which can be read as depression or inflammation, however you want to look at that. And you're living by your highest priority, which is going to be a eustress, a EU stress. And then you're not living in an unfulfilled way, but you're allowing yourself to work according to what's highest in your set of values. And another thing he said, which I wrote down, it liberates us from mediocrity. Oh, I love that. I think a lot of us, particularly in the healing profession, can want to stay small. We can want to just get on and do what we do and stay behind, the wire, as it were, and not stick our necks above and make too much of a noise about who we are and what we do. Because at one level, we're afraid of success. We're also terrified of failure. But I think understanding that is a kind of a way of keeping safe. It's understandable, but it will only ever lead to a sense of being, you're okay, you're mediocre, but you're never standing out and saying, well, this is what I do, this is what inspires me, this is what I love, this is what I know, and I'm teaching this in order to inspire others so that they can learn that they can do what they also wish and what they love. So it is a way of moving beyond those limitations. An individual on a mission is not easily disheartened, he said. And I thought, yes, we can see that, can't we, with people who have this kind of personal power. They are driven to achieve certain things because it's coming from within. It's a light from within, rather than, you're doing it to gain money or attention or power. And I think that does cross over into being financially independent as well. And John told a very funny story about how most people are, if they were given a lot of money suddenly, what would they do with it? And he was saying that most people would spend 20 to 80% of it within the first minute. Kind of, if they planned it and were writing it down in a minute, they could get rid of a large proportion of the money they were suddenly given. And I was thinking, what would I answer to that? Now, I've been investing recently in cryptocurrency, which is a very, it's a wild west. It's very uncertain, it's very risky, but it's very playful, it's very exciting. I haven't put vast amounts in, just a little bit here and there. But I am really aware that a lot of people are driven by this need and this desire to be financially independent, but the way they see that is purely in terms of how much money they've got. And financial independence, like any other state, is not all about one thing. It's about your mindset. It's about actually what are you going to create that gives value to the world with the money you have. And one of the first things I said in a forum that I belong to, where everyone's going on about pictures of Lamborghinis and, you know, a house by the coast, and this is all that you could gather, you know, accumulate if you invest in this particular product. And I was like, surely we can do better with the money that we have than just purchase goods that instantly devalue, which is what John was saying. And I was like, yes, I agree with you. Surely the people that give most value to the world know how to use money in a way that is philanthropic, that gives back more value and builds more capacity. And that I thought was just something that I really resonated with. It's how you manage what you make. It's not about hoarding or holding on to stuff because you have this fear that you're going to lose it, because that in itself is a negative kind of system that you're running. We need a shift in values to have a shift in life. I think that's where I'll end on this one. I've got lots more to say on this, but I am aware that people won't want to listen for like an hour as they would perhaps to John. But I want to talk next time about maybe finding your calling, finding what works for you, and how to transcend your limitations, as they are all based on fear. Thanks so much for listening. Take care. Bye for now.